economic indicators like gross domestic product, GDP, consumer price index, CPI, and index of industrial production, IIP, etc. The National Sample Survey Office, NSSO, conducts major sample surveys, which includes the Annual Survey of Industries, Periodic Labor Force Survey, and Household Consumer Expenditure Survey. It collects primary data for surveys through its 175 field offices located across the country. So far, 79 rounds of surveys have been completed, covering various subjects of socio-economic importance. Through these surveys, NSSO gathers data from across the nation, reflecting the diverse and dynamic nature of India's population and economy. New surveys have been started to fill some of the identified data gaps. These include Annual Survey of Unincorporated Sector Enterprises, Time Use Survey, and Pilot for Annual Survey of Service Sector Enterprises. The results of the first ASUSE 2021-2022 and second ASUSE 2022-23 have been released in June 2024, which is a major addition to the statistical ecosystem in India. Use of technology in data collection and compilation has led to significant improvement in timeliness of data released. A research and analysis unit has been created in the ministry with an aim to develop in-house capacity for research and data analytics for promoting evidence-based decision-making. MOSPI also monitors program and project implementation across ministries and departments and reviews 11 key infrastructure sectors. It administers the MPLAD scheme with an outlay of about Rs 4,000 crore for undertaking development projects as per locally felt needs. The National Statistical Commission is the apex advisory body for providing guidance for improvements in Indian statistical system. India has been elected as a member of the United Nations Statistical Commission for the period 2024 to 2027. The Indian Statistical Institute is a world-renowned institution devoted to the research, teaching and application of statistics, natural sciences and social sciences. More than 1,500 students pursue various courses in various centers of the institute across the country. Statistics Day, celebrated annually on June 29th since 2007, honors Professor P. Mahalanobis's contributions to economic planning and statistics and aims to raise public awareness, especially among youth, about the importance of statistics. The theme of the year 2024 is Use of Data for Decision Making, emphasizes the importance of data-driven decision making in socio-economic planning.
Let us congratulate the social media team and other divisions of MOSPI on their commendable efforts in putting up a brief narrative on the several important activities undertaken by the ministry. On this occasion, we have with us Dr. Saurav Garg, Secretary MOSPI. Sir is 1991 batch Indian Administrative Service Officer of the Odisha cadre. Prior to joining MOSPI, Sir was Secretary, Ministry of Social Justice and Empowerment. Previously as CEO, Unique Identification Authority of India, Sir was instrumental in expanding the usage of Aadhaar. He was Joint Secretary in the Ministry of Finance, Government of India, Secretary in the Departments of Agriculture, Industries and Urban Development in the Government of Odisha. Sir was on a secondment as advisor at the World Bank, Washington, D.C. Prior to joining the Indian Administrative Service, he was with the Tata Administrative Service. Sir holds a PhD in International Economics and Development from the Johns Hopkins University, USA, an MBA from IIM Ahmedabad, and a BTech from IIT Delhi. Sir was a Chevening Gurukul Scholar at the London School of Economics. With a huge round of applause, may I now request Sir to kindly address the gathering.
Dr. Arvind Panagaria, Chairman of the 16th Finance Commission. Professor Karandikar, Chairman of the National Statistical Commission. Dr. V.K. Paul, Member Niti Aayog. Mr. Louis Philippe, the Global Director, Poverty and Equity, World Bank. Dr. Manoj Panda, Dr. Sadhu, who's a member of the National Statistical Commission. Senior colleagues from the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, representatives of different state governments, UN agencies, and other distinguished participants. Thank you all for being here today on this occasion of Statistics Day. We also have a large number of people joining virtually, so a warm welcome to them too for joining us on this occasion. I don't need to re-emphasize the importance of the Statistics Day that we are celebrating today, but I think it gives us an opportunity to reiterate the importance of statistics and data and policy making as we move ahead. The movie which was shown brought out details of some of the different reports that we bring out, which are the bedrock of macroeconomic policy planning in the country. And these surveys have only been increasing in numbers and diversity. In terms of the periodic labor force survey or the household consumption expenditure survey, they form the very basis for a number of policy decisions that the government makes and a number of schemes and programs that the government implements. On a regular basis, we are looking at what kind of systemic improvements can be made in whether it's the timely publication of the data, whether it's the IT tools that we can employ in these activities, as also in ensuring that we move away from the basic pen and paper kind of surveys and to a completely computer-assisted interview system. So that makes things so much more faster. Some of the recent surveys which we did was, for the first time, we did a survey of the usage of Ayush and the knowledge of Ayush or traditional medicines and what extent it is used. Whether it's on the tourism sector or other sectors, there are these surveys which are extremely important for formulating the schemes and programs as we move towards a Viksit Bharat 2047. Recently, for the first time, in the recent past at least, we did a data users conference where we had different stakeholders discussing how to make better use of data. And I think that's the focus of the ministry going forward, that number one, people are aware of the data that is available, and at the same time make better use of data analytics and other tools for better decision making. Obviously, a basic need for that is obviously having high quality data collection, and so that data collection methods are something that we are regularly working on. I would just like to also mention that across the government, we have a large amount of data that is available. And if we look at the kind of usage that data is being made of, it really helps to understand that how we are moving from, if I can call it, an anecdotal based decision making to a more data based decision making. After all, I suppose 100 anecdotes is data, it's statistics. I'll just like to highlight a few, and some of those ministries might be present out here. The Ministry of Women and Child Development, they have the Poshan Tracker, where nearly 100 million children and young mothers are there on this tracker, where you are able to do a dynamic identification of stunting, wasting, and underweight. I'm sure many of the agencies present out here are familiar with that. But I think the ability to be able to pinpoint on a real-time basis that in which village, which child needs greater effort, I think that is leading to the development of a Poshan 2.0 program, which is focused on these kind of activities. And I think the changes in nutrition over the past decade only highlight the fact that this kind of monitoring is possible because of data. We also have this PM Gati Shakti portal, which is a GIS-enabled platform, which helps to for planning of infrastructure. As of now, we have nearly 1,463 data layers, and by data layers, I mean if we have the road network, that's one layer. If we have the primary health centers located across on the maps, that's another layer. So nearly 1,500 such sets of data are available, which is enabling a much faster process of planning for infrastructure, and also ensuring that we know where there is no skill development center, and therefore we need to develop a skill development center in that area. A number of states have been doing a number of initiatives, and they have been able to, I think, go a step further in trying to link different databases. I can just give a few examples. You have Kutumba in Karnataka, you have Samagra in Madhya Pradesh, you have Jan Aadhaar in Rajasthan, you have the Parivar Pehchan Patra in Haryana, and a number of other states have been doing that. And what it does is that we are moving in a way from an application-based identification of beneficiaries to an entitlement-based identification, so that automatically based on what is the kind of assets they have, what are the kind of benefits they're getting. And this is what has led to a program like PM Kisan being rolled out in a couple of months, which would have been otherwise not possible. Apart from this, I won't talk about the number of other platforms that exist, but just to mention, we have the Disha platform of the Ministry of Rural Development, where we have more than 93 schemes on the platform, where you can do a deep dive analysis and monitoring of the program. You have the UDICE of the Department of School and School Education and Literacy, where you have nearly 1.4 million schools mapped out there in terms of, and the kind of 9.5 million teachers, and what is happening out there in terms of attendance, in terms of skill, in terms of quality, and also to track some of the beneficiaries and the students. And similarly, you have for Awas Yojana, you have for the animal vaccination program. So these are actual uses of data which are being done across departments, but obviously there's a lot more to be done. One other area which I would just like to highlight is the fact that the One Nation, One Ration card, which has been rolled out, where you have more than 800 million people who have ration cards. Because of this, a person, if part of the family is staying in the village and part of the family is, let us say, working in some urban metropolis, two people of that family or one person of that family working in Delhi or Mumbai or any of the other cities, they can draw their ration from there, and the balance members staying in the village, they can draw their ration from the village. And I think this is some of the issues which are, when one looks at transient poverty or transient migration, this is what helps to ensure that the targeting is so much more effective, and people are able to access basic necessities across the nation, irrespective of where they're living. Similarly, we are in the stage of developing different platforms. One of the platforms we'll be formally launching today also. But apart from that, we have the National Data Analytics Platform, which the NITI Aayog has developed, which has a number of databases, and you can do data analysis, data visualization on that. We have the gov.data.in platform, which again looks at different databases and platforms. So the effort is to bring different databases so that access and usability of those databases is so much more there that it becomes ingrained in the decision making. That is then a more informed decision making would definitely, I'm sure, lead to better policy programs and planning. So going forward, this is the focus of the ministry. We have the advantage of having good trained people across the country, across more than 150 locations, where the surveys are being done on a regular basis, different kinds of census work is being done on a regular basis, and the analytical capabilities is something that we are continually focusing on, and all those present out here today are people who are directly associated with these activities, whether in terms of the surveys, whether in terms of the census, or whether in terms of the analytics and visualization. All I would just like to say is the kind of the kind of efforts that are being done and the vision that the government has of the Viksit Bharat 2047. Use of data will continue to become increasingly more and more important, and I think all of us have an important role to play to ensure better decision making in the government. So thank you all for coming out here, and the spirit of the Statistics Day is something that we need to ensure that it runs through the year in our day-to-day programs and work. Thank you all.
Thank you, sir, for the inspirational address. Your vision has provided the required thrust for the ministry to propel towards more progress. National Statistical Commission of India plays a vital role in shaping and advancing the statistical landscape of the country by providing expert guidance for improving the statistical system of the country. Professor Rajiv Lakshman Karandikar is the chairman of National Statistical Commission and holding the post of Professor Emeritus at Chennai Mathematical Institute. Sir is a former head of Delhi Center of Indian Statistical Institute and is a renowned Indian mathematician, statistician, and cephalologist. Sir also served as director of CMI from 2010 until 2021. He is a fellow of the Indian Academy of Sciences and Indian National Science Academy. Professor Karandikar is widely known for his 3 decades of work on probability theory as well as applications of mathematics and statistics to real-world questions. Professor Karandikar was awarded National Award in Statistics in honor of Professor C.R. Rao by MOSPI and S.S. Bhatnagar Prize by the CSIR in 1991. He is a recipient of P.C. Mahalanobis Gold Medal by Indian Science Congress Association 2014. Sir has authored books on stochastic calculus, option pricing theory, and white noise theory of prediction, filtering, and smoothing. Sir, I take the privilege to invite you to share your words of wisdom on the occasion of 18th Statistics Day. Please.
Professor Panagaria, Dr. Saurabh Garg, distinguished guests, friends and colleagues. And it gives me great pleasure to be here today. Now I have not been at ISI for many years, but the institution that Professor Mahalanobis founded, but I had my beginning and a long stint at ISI, and have learnt a lot about how the institute was and how the country was in that time. I'd like to say that Professor Mahalanobis was a visionary. He had foreseen the importance of that the data or statistics, which perhaps in his mind were synonyms, will have in decision making in times to come. Some of you may not even be aware that he was actually a professor of physics. So he had done his physics BSc in Calcutta and had gone to Cambridge to study physics. And while being there, he also learnt what the new or emerging, it was not even a separate discipline, but ideas which were emerging at that time. And the time we are talking about is 1912, 1915, those 3 years. And he heard or came to know about statistics at that time. he was convinced that it is a great thing to happen in the future. He continued his physics, but his focus from then on was on statistics. So he came back, had a position as faculty member at Presidency College, Calcutta, and while being there, he had dreamed of creating some entity for statistics. And he proposed and created what was called a statistical laboratory at Presidency College. And if any of you go to Presidency College, Calcutta, you can see he had been given a room which was the bottom of a staircase. So, triangular area, and that still has a sign which says Statistical Laboratory. That is where it began. That thing transformed into Indian Statistical Institute and has an impact on India and perhaps to some extent at least across the globe on the way the discipline has grown. So he thought about statistics as the key technology, the technology which is going to transform everything around you in time to come. Because of his connection with Rabindranath Tagore, perhaps, he was introduced to Jawaharlal Nehru well before independence of India, and he had conveyed his ideas to Nehru and convinced him about the importance. So much so that after independence, when Nehru became the first Prime Minister, soon after that, he invited Mahalanobis to come and be a statistical advisor to the cabinet. I've heard, I have not been able to get a confirmation, that India had a statistical advisor to the cabinet before it had a science advisor to the cabinet. So that was the importance he put to this and played a role in the national planning. Various activities which started at ISI were then spored off as a separate entity. So NSSO, which undertakes all the surveys, etc., it began in ISI and then came out as a separate entity. The Calcutta office of NSSO still is next door to ISI in Calcutta. Coming to today's time, this importance of statistics is now understood by large number of people. I'm not saying majority or anything like that, but much larger than what it was going back 20 years and much larger than what it was 50 years ago, thanks to all the talk about data science and artificial intelligence and all that. And of course, the activities of MOSPI, while there are people who praise it, there have been people who criticize it, and it will go on all the time. But as Dr. Garg mentioned, the efforts are on to improve various aspects, part of which is the time gap between collection of data and delivery of the report, and making it easy for people to access the report and next level of data, as detailed a level of data as can be made to public. So this has always been an issue, not just with statistics data, but all kinds of data and globally, that privacy issues. What part of the data, if you release it, it will be violating some law or the other, or at least ethically not correct, and what can you release? Obviously, the extreme thing will be you don't release everything and then you are not creating trouble for anyone. But then that is not serving the purpose, right? So, the release of data subject to privacy, etc., controls is a must. And MOSPI is also going on working about that. And not just making it available. For example, making a report available in PDF is not of much use, because if the final thing that you want to do has to be derived out of it, you have to go through a lot of trouble in interpreting, or some typist has to type out the data once again. That is a waste of time, right? So delivering the data in a way it is easy to use, and for users, common people, data table may not mean anything, but you put a graph and immediately their mind can sense what you are trying to say. So all these efforts are being undertaken by MOSPI and by other in the country Today, let me talk about two things. One is the importance of information technology in all the activity that MOSPI does. Maybe when it was designed, at that time information technology did not exist, and over a period of time it came in, but people felt we are fine whatever we do. But today, to do things data which is available with you, to process it, to make it available, unless you use information technology and efficiently, it's just waste of time, energy and effort. So MOSPI has to also focus its efforts on improving that, modernizing that. In fact, maybe it is changing now, but I think few years ago, while there is a large number of statistics officers, ISS officers, there was nobody who is technically trained in information technology. Some of them have picked up, but there was none. That thing is changing, and that is very welcome. The other issue I want to talk about is, of course, also mentioned by Dr. Garg. Namely, there are so many entities in the government, national as well as state governments, which is collecting and using data in their own way. Some of it is made available to public, some of it is not. Even when made available to public, the data doesn't talk to each other. In other words, and now I'm not talking in terms of text file versus PDF, I'm talking in terms of the way a table is made, let's say code. Let's say the GST data and the import-export data. The codes used by these two entities are different, and therefore, if you want to do some analysis which involves both the things, the GST data and the import-export data, it is very difficult to put it together and make some coherent decision based on that. The same would apply to other things which are collecting data. Each one does to their best capacity, collection and dissemination, but unless these data talk to each other, that means they are organized in a way that they are sharing codes, it is of limited value for a nationwide decision making, because the decision is not just going to be based only on what is the GST data. You have to merge it with various other things, and only then that will be useful. So I think that there is a strong need for coordination across all the entities, to begin with central government, then we add to it state governments, and then we can add others who are collecting data or storing data, available data generated through transactions. And let us add to that the banking. That's the other source which is generating tons of data. There people are scared about privacy issues, but again a thought should be given as to what part of that data can actually be released at least to decision makers. Or so there is a strong need to create, for the central government perhaps, to create first expert group which will look at, which involves all the stakeholders, which will look at these issues and figure out, trying to come out with common codes, common way of data collection, dissemination, so that the best use of data can be made in times to come. It's not easy to do, it is not going to happen in one day, it will take time. And instead of an expert group first coming out with recommendation and then others giving their response saying, no, this cannot be done because of this reason, that reason, some of them may be valid, some of them may be imaginary. The best way to do it is to involve the data, those who are gathering the data, along with those who want to use the data, and technical experts. There we can bring in Niti Aayog, we can bring in UADAI, who has experience in doing such things, and other such entities, MeitY for that matter. So all these groups should be brought together, and they should come out with a thing which may take maybe 1 year. Implementation may take another 1 year, but at least in 2 years we can have a way in which, on one hand, we have the survey data collected by MOSPI through NSSO, and on the other hand, we have the data collected through transactions and other activities which our government is doing, and all this can be put together to help us in, finally, our goal is to make efficient decision for the large masses, and we can use all this which is happening to the best possible way. So that is the message I would like to have today, that we can talk to others in the government and try to come up with this plan of integrating various data sets so that it can be best used. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for the valuable address, which has not only broadened our knowledge, but also inspired us to think more critically about the role of statistics in decision making. Your contribution today has made a significant impact, and we are deeply grateful for your time and expertise. In the words of Nelson Mandela, and I quote, "The youth of today are the leaders of tomorrow," unquote. It is of utmost importance to invest in young talents because they are the hope of the future. MOSPI organizes an all India level essay writing competition every year on the subject relevant to statistics or official statistics for the postgraduate students to commemorate the birth anniversary of eminent statistician Professor P.C. Mahalanobis. The aim of this competition is to infuse the importance of official statistics in the youth. Students from different recognized universities all over the country participate in this competition. A total of 11 prize winners have been selected for the essay writing competition in 2024. The essays have been evaluated on the basis of contents, originality of ideas, sequence of presentation, and writing skills. The prize winners are here with us today. The awards consist of a memento, a certificate, and cash prize. I would now request Dr. Arvind Pangaria, Chairman 16th Finance Commission, to present the awards to the young talents. First prize winner for this year's essay competition is Miss Rishika Lodha from Central University of Rajasthan, but due to some personal reasons, she is unable to attend today's function. We have two second prize winners, Miss Amulya Avasthi from Vanasthali Vidyapit. Shri Shubham Bharadwaj from Banaras Hindu University. Let us have a big round of applause for Miss Amulya and Shri Shubham. For the third position, we have three winners. Shri Abhishek Verma from Baba Saheb Bhimrao Ambedkar University, Lucknow. Miss Nandini Karmakar from University of Delhi. And Ms. Vandita Srivastav from University of Allahabad. Congratulations to Shri Abhishek, Ms. Nandini and Ms. Vandita. There are 5 consolation prize winners, Ms. Riya Malhotra from University of Delhi, Ms. K.M. Diksha from Aligarh Muslim University, Ms. Anushka Dev from Indian Statistical Institute, Shri Arvind Kumar from University of Rajasthan. And Ms. Swati Dwivedi from University of Lucknow. Once again, a big round of applause for the winners of the essay writing competition. Sir, it's done. You may please. Thank you, sir. Heartiest congratulations to this group of young students for their remarkable performance. The ministry is really proud of you all and wishes you success in all your future endeavors. Thank you, sir, for presenting the winners with their well-deserved prizes. I would now request Ms. Deepika to take you ahead with the next session.
Congratulations to all the students. Stephen Few once said, and I quote, "Numbers have an important story to tell. They rely on you to give them a clear and convincing voice," unquote. When we talk about development, we must be informed that India is a signatory to the resolution adopted on transforming the world, the 2030 Agenda for the Sustainable Development, at the 70th session of the United Nations General Assembly, held on 25th September 2015. There started our journey of developing National Indicator Framework with Baseline Report 2015-16 and the progress reports year after year thereon. Today, on the occasion of the Statistics Day, we have 3 releases lined up on Sustainable Development Goals. It is my great honor to request our chief guest, Dr. Arvind Pangaria, to unwrap the tireless efforts of the officers of MOSPI, and I request the esteemed dignitaries present on the dais to please join him for the release of our first publication, the Sustainable Development Goals National Indicator Framework Progress Report 2024. The report highlights the progress made so far in the journey of SDGs achievement at national level. It contains time series data and metadata on national indicators based on National Indicator Framework 2024. The report has been prepared by taking data and inputs from line ministries and departments. This report is a valuable tool for policymakers, planners, and other stakeholders, and will help in measuring the progress of SDGs and associated targets till date. Now, we'll move ahead with unveiling of other 2 publications. The first one is the Data Snapshot on Sustainable Development Goals, National Indicator Framework 2024. This is a handbook containing time series data on SDG national indicators along with their data sources and periodicity. It will help the users to comprehend and analyze base and latest values of the indicators. The next report is the Sustainable Development Goals National Indicator Framework 2024. The SDGs NIF The SDGs NIF 2024 is a handbook containing current national SDG indicators, data sources, and their periodicity. Thank you, sirs. Everyone present today would be well aware that MOSPI is responsible for the compilation of official statistics in the country. A critical aspect of the compilation of these numbers is their dissemination to the various users of official statistics in an effective and efficient manner. Recognizing the above need, MOSPI has been working on developing a data portal called e-Sankhiki for official statistics, having time series data of important macro indicators and the catalog of data assets of the ministry. A data visualization section has also been created recently on MOSPI website in order to improve communication of data and facilitate its better understanding. I would now invite our chief guest to unveil the e-Sankhiki portal, and it will be followed by a short video giving glimpse of the portal.
In the age of a digital revolution, data is the new oil. Every second, millions of posts, likes, and shares are generated on social media platforms like Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and X, formerly known as Twitter. In this sea of data, the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation plays a pivotal role. MOSPI is dedicated to producing and disseminating official statistics that are vital for policy making, research, and informed decision making. With a mandate to ensure the availability and accessibility of quality data, MOSPI is committed to transparency and accountability. The dissemination of data has been a cornerstone of our approach, ensuring that every citizen, researcher, and policymaker has access to accurate and reliable information. Today, we introduce a groundbreaking leap in this mission, the National Statistics Office Data Portal, a single source of truth that enhances the value of data, making it accessible and user-friendly than ever before. Our philosophy is simple: enhanced user experience through cutting-edge technology. The new data portal is designed with the user in mind, providing ease of access and management, with data available at the click of a mouse. This portal not only simplifies data access, but also empowers data-driven decision-making. With features tailored to meet the diverse needs of our users, the portal offers comprehensive data sets, interactive visualizations, and seamless integration with analytical tools. It's a one-stop solution for anyone seeking to harness the power of data. As we launch this state-of-the-art data portal on Statistics Day, we take a significant step forward. This is day one of a new era, where data is at your fingertips, ready to drive innovation, growth, and development. This is day one. Imagine what we can achieve one day. National Statistical Office, empowering India with data.
Let us congratulate different divisions of the ministry for their untiring efforts in bringing out these publications and presenting us with the e-Sankhiki portal. Today, we are honored with the presence of our chief guest, Dr. Arvind Pangaria, Chairman of 16th Finance Commission and Professor of Economics, and Jagdish Bhagwati, Professor of Indian Political Economy at Columbia University since January 2004. From January 2015 to August 2017, he served as the first Vice Chairman of Niti Aayog, Government of India, in the rank of a Cabinet Minister. During these years, he also served as India's G20 Sherpa and led the Indian teams that negotiated the G20 leaders' communiques during the presidencies of Turkey, China, and Germany in the years 2015 to 2017. He is a former chief economist of the Asian Development Bank and was on the faculty of the Department of Economics at University of Maryland at College Park from 1978 to 2003. During these years, Sir also worked with the World Bank, the IMF, and the UNCTAD in various capacities. He holds a PhD degree in economics from Princeton University, a master's in economics from the University of Rajasthan, Jaipur, Sir has authored several books. Latest among them are Free Trade and Prosperity and India Unlimited. His book, India the Emerging Giant, was listed as a top pick of 2008 by The Economist and described as the definitive book on Indian economy by Farid Zakaria of the CNN. The Economist has described his book, Why Growth Matters, as a manifesto for policymakers and analysts. Sir was awarded the Padma Bhushan by the Government of India in 2012. I would like to request Dr. Pangaria to address this august gathering on the occasion of Statistics Day.
Professor Karandikar, Dr. Saurabh Garg, Director General of MOSPI, my colleague from my former institution, member Niti Aayog, Dr. V.K. Paul, and my current colleague from 16th Finance Commission, Dr. Manoj Panda, and distinguished guests. Before I turn to my prepared remarks, just 2 or 3 points to make. First of all, economists are really nothing without statistics, so they are always in awe of the statisticians. So I'm really humbled to be in the company of Professor Karandikar today. Second, I was very pleased to see that Prime Minister is very keen on women-led development, and boy, our awards this morning were all led by women, practically. So very pleased to hear that, pleased to observe that. And all these wonderful portals that our Secretary Mosby mentioned, Portion Portal, Gati Shakti, and numerous others, incredible accomplishments. But that really tempted me to request him also to look for creating a portal for the data of this Finance Commission. Apparently, finance commissions are appointed, for maybe they remain in office for a couple of years. They're appointed every 5 years, and each finance commission collects its data, but there is no permanent home for these data. So, each commission goes out, next one comes in, starts gathering data all over again. There are lots of these, Excel files that all members and the staff of the finance commissions really live with, and they really remain on their computers most likely. So I think, we really, it's not necessarily MOSPI has to do it, but somebody I think ought to take some sort of lead in creating a home for these data on a permanent basis, so that, the work of the commission actually will certainly get much smoothened out for at least in the future. All right, so those are my kind of remarks to make on the spur, but I now turn to my prepared remarks. So it's my great pleasure to address this august gathering on the occasion of Statistics Day, so named after the birth anniversary of post-independence India's first statistician, and by first statistician I mean in the capitals. This was really Professor Prasant Chandra Mahalanobis was genuinely the first, should be regarded as the first statistician of independent India. My heartiest congratulations to the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation for successfully celebrating this day every year since 2007. P.C. Mahalanobis was a remarkable intellectual. He was formally trained as a physicist, as we heard from Professor Karandikar just now. His highest degree was from Cambridge University, and it was during this period, towards the end really, that he came across this journal called Biometrica, which was edited by Carl Pearson, which attracted him to the field of statistics. He then returned to Calcutta at the Presidency College, joined the faculty at in the Department of Physics. But he continued his, this is where sort of, he continued to nurture his interest in statistics. He collected a group of scholars, none of whom were really trained statisticians, but he collected them, and this lab that Professor Karandikar mentioned came to life. Eventually, that sort of regular interaction of this group of people led to the establishment of the Indian Statistical Institute in 1932. And if one can really trust Wikipedia, according to it, the budget of the first year of this institute was 238 rupees. The following year, so after launching the ISI, the Indian Statistical Institute, Professor Mahalanobis also launched a journal called Sankhya, which very quickly acquired international importance, and it is extremely highly regarded till today. Professor Mahalanobis himself actually contributed several articles to it, and one of the famous ones for The Economist really is his 1955 article. This is a very long article, probably going, no, I don't remember the full, but easily going into about 100 pages or so. Mahalanobis also had close ties to the well-known Tagore family of Bengal, and had met Nehru several times when Nehru came to Kolkata to see Nobel laureate Rabindranath Tagore. One evening in early 1940, when discussions on planning within the National Planning Committee of the Congress Party were ongoing, Mahalanobis visited Nehru at his Allahabad home, and after dinner, the two of them had a long chat until lasting until 2 a.m. On the role of statistics in planning. And this is where the serious association between the two started, and you can see that Nehru throughout his life, perhaps as a result of some of these interactions with Mahalanobis as well, very much valued statistics, valued data. Upon becoming the Prime Minister of independent India, Nehru then appointed Mahalanobis as the honorary statistician, honorary statistical advisor to his cabinet. During the following decade, Mahalanobis laid the foundation of a robust statistical system in India. On this foundation, Mosby went on to build and nurture the magnificent edifice of one of the world's best statistical systems among developing countries. So today, as a result, among developing countries, India remains unique in having reliable estimates of not just GDP and its various components, meaning industry, services, agriculture, etc., but also estimates of poverty and inequality going back to the beginning of the 1950s decade. So it's quite remarkable, actually, and I think Angus Deaton, another Nobel economics Nobel laureate, really gave the best tribute to the work that Mahalanobis led in India in a 2005 article, which he had co-authored with Valerie Kozel. He wrote, and I'm quoting, so he says, Angus Deaton, where Mahalanobis and India led, the rest of the world has followed, so that today most countries have a recent household income or expenditure survey. Most countries can only envy India in their statistical capacity. So really that tradition that got built up also brought, some of the first-rate, some of the best statisticians, in the early generation of the statisticians that came out of ISI included such distinguished luminaries as S.S. Bose, J.M. Sengupta, R.C. Bose, S.N. Roy, K.R. Nair, D.B. Lahiri, and C.R. Rao. C.R. Rao was, in fact, very recently recognized by the Econometric Society for his lifetime work. There was an award actually instituted in his name, of which the first recipients were C. Rangarajan and Jagdish Bhagwati. So in any case, the importance of data and their analysis for conceiving and implementing good economic policies can hardly be overestimated. I'm reminded of one of the many stories my friend and mentor, Jagdish Bhagwati, has told me. Melanobis had brought Bhagwati to the planning unit, this was very early 1960s, of ISI Delhi to work with the Planning Commission. And one day, Jagdish was to participate in a debate on some economic policy issue. And as he was preparing for the debate, Pitambar Pant, who was then the chief of the prospective planning unit in the Planning Commission, walked to him and advised him. And he said, remember Bhagwati, that if your opponent has the data and you don't, you will definitely lose the debate. So this was really, underlining the importance of data, not just in, making of policy, implementing policy, but also a lot of the work economists have to do is in influencing public opinion. And for that also, data play an extremely important role. Later, when a debate on whether or not growth could help the poor broke out first in the Indian Parliament, and that it obviously ended up in the corridors of the Planning Commission, Bhagwati went on to tackle this question. He collected the data on different countries, whatever data on different countries that were then available, and analyzed them. And he found that across a wide spectrum of per capita income countries, the share of the bottom 30% of the population hardly changed. What that meant was that the incomes of the bottom 30% largely moved with per capita income, because the share relative was more or less constant of this particular population in the bottom 30% of the distribution. So he reached the conclusion that, well, in the end, the primary instrument for poverty alleviation had to be growth. And that is a kind of, very initial belief that Bhagwati, or initial conclusion that Bhagwati came to based on the data, which stayed with him pretty much throughout his life. It also eventually actually became the basis of the recommendation in the 15-year plan that Pitambar Pant at that time produced in the 1960s. This was the only kind of very early such long-term plan that was written. And the key message, key recommendation of that 15-year plan was that growth had to be the primary instrument. And so it had recommended 7% growth at that time. Statistics are thus fundamental to all activities, ranging from formulating policies to analyzing the outcomes of the programs and schemes, economic planning, and social development. This also happens to be a time when the entire world's eyes are on India's performance in statistics. After a gap of almost 2 decades, India has been elected as a member of the United Nations Statistical Commission for 2024-2027. This was mentioned earlier. This places an enormous responsibility on our country to contribute to the agenda of setting standards in the global statistical systems, while making the Indian statistical system more robust as well. The challenge of the current times is to produce authentic, robust, and accurate statistics to cope with the huge demand for information that is now almost universally accessible through digital and other channels. The need of the hour is to ensure the availability of accurate data so that these can be appropriately fed into the decision-making processes through the aid of modern technology. Let me take this opportunity to compliment the entire statistical fraternity of the country for creating India's robust statistical systems. It is heartening to see that many states of India are now becoming pioneers in grounding their economic policies in data analysis. I was very impressed actually when I was at Niti Aayog, visited Gujarat, and how they had created this massive economic portal where they would collect data all the way from the village level, then to the upper levels, all the way to the district and ultimately the state level. Similar portals, Secretary Garg had mentioned, exist in many of the other states as well. So that is really the level at which, to which we have come since the days of Melanobis. We must encourage all the young statisticians to continue to lead the nation and the world with their contributions to theoretical and applied statistical methods. This will be a befitting tribute to the memory of Professor P.C. Melanobis. I want to conclude by expressing hope that India will continue its commendable work in data-driven statistical research and development activities for innovation in medicine, academia, business, information technology, economics, and other fields. I'm confident that we all will be agents of change as we endeavor to transform India into a developed nation. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you, sir, for the valuable address and sharing such thought-provoking insight with us. Now, let me introduce an officer from 1992 batch of Indian Statistical Service who has been serving statistical system for over 30 years. During his long tenure in FOD headquarters, Sir has immensely contributed in handling various complexities in field administration to foster improved and enhanced working environment and preventive vigilance. Sir has also worked in different ministries and departments, which include Directorate of Data Management, Department of Revenue, Department of Chemicals and Petrochemicals, Central Bureau of Health Intelligence, etc. May I now request Shri Ghansham, Additional Director General, Coordination and International Cooperation Division, MOSPI, to propose a vote of thanks.
Thank you. Good morning, esteemed guests, eminent participants, ladies and gentlemen. It is my honor and privilege to propose a vote of thanks on this auspicious occasion of the 18th Statistics Day celebration. First and foremost, I would like to express our sincere gratitude to Dr. Arvind Pangadia, the chairman of the 16th Finance Commission, for gracing this event as a chief guest and enlightening us with valuable insights. Thank you, sir. We are deeply grateful to Professor Rajiv Lakshman Karandikar, the chairman of the National Statistical Commission, for his esteemed presence and thought-provoking address. Thank you, sir. Our heartfelt thanks go to Dr. Saurabh Garg, the Secretary of the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, for his visionary leadership and unwavering support and guidance in organizing this momentous celebration. Thank you, sir. I also thank Dr. Vinod Paul, Member NITI, and Dr. Manoj Panda, Member Finance Commission, and Sri A.K. Sadhu, Member National Statistical Commission, for gracing the occasion. We express our sincere appreciation to Dr. Ajay Kumar, the former Secretary of the Ministry of Defense, for kindly agreeing to our request to deliver a lecture and share his thought on the occasion of Statistics Day 24 on the theme of the Statistics Day, that is use of data and decision making. Thank you, sir. Our thanks are also due to Mr. Luis Felipe Lopez Calva, the Global Director for the World Bank Group's Poverty and Equity Global Practice, for kindly agreeing to share his ideas and valuable insights on the global experience of using data for decision making. Thank you. Our thanks are also due to Sri P.R. Meshram, Director General, Coordination and Administration, who has been instrumental in guiding us on every moment for making this occasion momentous. I also thank other Director General, Sri Kal Singh, Director General Statistics, Ms. Geeta Singh, Director General NSS, and all other senior officers, including Additional Secretary MOSPI, AS and FA MOSPI, and all senior officers of MOSPI and other central ministries, state government, and union territories who are participating in this momentous occasion. I also thank dignitaries from the ministries, departments, participants from state governments, union territories, academic institutions, research institutions, industry groups, economic institutions, and other organizations for participating in the momentous occasion, both physical and virtual mode, who are associated with this grand program. We express our sincere appreciation also to UN resident coordinator and his representatives, different UN agencies, World Bank representatives, and different UN agencies for making their gracious presence in this function. We congratulate the Social Statistics Division of MOSPI for release of their valuable publication and the Computer Center for launching the e-Sankhiki portal and the Central Data Repository, as well as the award winners and their families and their proud parents for attending this function. Last but not the least, I extend my thanks to Joint Secretary Administration for supporting my team of coordination and Sri C.K. Jha, Deputy Director General, who has been on toes for making all these arrangements, and his entire team, and including the SSS, our state unit of the ministry, who has supported me in all these arrangements throughout the preparations. Finally, I would like to extend our heartfelt thanks to officials of the Manekshaw Center Auditorium, the media representatives, officers of PIB, all ministries, for making their gracious presence and contributing in different facets and steps of this program. In the last, I thank each and everyone who are present and making their presence physically and virtually. I also thank my special thanks to our senior colleagues, former DGs and former secretaries who were also requested, and they made their presence and shown their reunion with us, with the statistical fraternity. They have shown their reunion. Sir, thank you very much for making your presence on this momentous occasion. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you one and all for making this event success. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for your words of appreciation. We will now move ahead with the technical session of the day. Before proceeding, may I request the dignitaries on the dais to kindly take their designated seats in the audience. Your continued presence among us is of great significance. On each Statistics Day, one particular theme of current national importance is chosen for initiating further discussions towards filling the data gaps and improvement of timelines and quality in that area with active engagement of stakeholders. This year, the theme is use of data for decision making. So to start with the inaugural technical session, it is my privilege to request Dr. Ajay Kumar, ex-Secretary, Ministry of Defense, to grace the dais with his presence. I am honored to invite Mr. Luis Felipe Lopez Calva, Global Director for the World Bank's Poverty and Equity Global Practice in the Equitable Growth, Finance and Institutions Vice Presidency, on the dais. Please join me in welcoming Shri C. K. Jha, Deputy Director General, Coordination and International Cooperation Division, on the dais. Now I invite Dr. Priyanka Anjoy to present a token of remembrance to Dr. Ajay Kumar. I would now request Sri Prasu Jain to present a sapling to Mr. Luis Felipe, Global Director, World Bank. I invite Ms. Rupali Gupta to present a sapling to Sri C.K. Jha, DDG, CICD. Thank you all. Dr. Ajay Kumar is the longest serving secretary in Ministry of Defence, where he also served as secretary in Department of Defence Production. Sir is credited to have transformed the defence industry ecosystem under the Atmanirbhar Bharat. He also conceptualized and implemented the historic corporatization of 200-year-old 80,000 employees strong Ordnance Factories Board. He also originated Innovation for Defence Excellence Program, a startup ecosystem which today powers new technologies in defense, space, drones, artificial intelligence, etc. Sir joined the Indian Administrative Service in 1985 and in a career spanning over 37 years, served in key policy-making positions in Government of India, State Government of Kerala, besides having served on the Board of Directors of several public sector organizations. Dr. Kumar is PhD in Business Administration from the Carlson School of Management, University of Minnesota. He also has MS in Applied Economics from the University of Minnesota. He did his BTech in Electrical Engineering from the Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur. Sir is currently a distinguished visiting professor at IIT Kanpur and a non-resident senior fellow at Carnegie, India. Sir was conferred Distinguished Alumnus Award of IIT Kanpur, an honorary doctorate in philosophy by Amity University, Fellow of Indian National Academy of Engineers for outstanding contributions in engineering and dynamic leadership in engineering domain. He is recipient of several awards, including Citation by the Prime Minister of India, Champion of Change Award, Electronics Leader of the Year 2013, Sarabhai Award, among others. With a huge round of applause, please join me in welcoming Sir for his address on today's theme. Sir, please.
Good morning, everyone. Distinguished members of the audience, distinguished members in the panel. It's actually embarrassing after this readout of the CV, and I honestly had no idea that this is going to be read out because this has very little relevance with what we are going to be talking today. But let me start by saying that I have always believed that with the change in the importance of data in this digital age, the scope and relevance of the Ministry of Statistics has transformed to a totally different dimension. And it is this thought that I am going to be sharing with you, and hopefully at the end of this talk, I would have been able to create some impression in this regard. Throughout history, we have been looking to create value out of data to improve decision making using statistics. Professor Mahalanobis is today remembered for the wonderful work he did in this regard in his era. In his era, it was basically about algebraic equations which gave additional value to data. As we moved forward, as software technologies came, we used software technologies to solve those equations and get better results. And still, when we moved forward, we recognized the time dimension of data also. When we combine time with the physical attributes of data, we get into the domain of just-in-time management, and a totally new level of decision making emerges. And all this has evolved over time. But if you look at it, in each of these cases, we are actually looking to improve the decision making and create greater value from the basic business process, economic process, social process that we are doing. We are trying to see how to improve the decision making in that process. Today we see a totally different paradigm in this regard. And this is for the first time when data is not determining the value of the basic economic process only, but in itself it is creating new economic processes, new businesses, and which is making a huge difference. So therefore, I don't think we have seen before data creating so much of value in itself. Just to substantiate this point, look at some of the biggest corporations in the world today, and what is the business that they do. Alphabet, which is nothing but the father organization of Google, is 1.75 trillion. Meta, which is the father organization of Facebook, WhatsApp, Instagram, and Messenger, is 1.25 trillion. And Amazon, whose basic proposition actually derives from data, is today over $1.85 trillion. Each of them bigger than GDP of most big nations in the world, and today have created value out of data. So we are living in an age where data, apart from adding value to whatever we do, today has potential to create huge value in itself. And this is the paradigm I think we need to discover in the new era of Ministry of Statistics. The second point which I wanted to make is that we have seen traditional models of data collection, their maintenance, management, but today we are looking at a totally different era of statistics. We are in the world of technology, in the world of IoT, sensors, each of which is generating data of minutest of transaction changes, which was not possible today. As a result, if you look at how the data explosion has taken place in the last, we just look at the last 12 years, the data has been growing at a compound annual growth rate of 40 to 50%. 40 to 50% year after year, so much so that today we are generating roughly 120 zettabytes of data. 120 zettabytes of data. And just to say what a zettabyte is, because some of us may not know what a zettabyte is, it's 10 to the power 21. And what is 10 to the power 21? To give you a physical feel of it, it is roughly 250 billion DVDs. 250 billion DVDs will collect that data that is being produced annually, or roughly data that will be able to store 36 million years of HD video. 36 million years of HD video, that is what we are generating every year today. In this kind of data explosion, the traditional models of creating value for data are no more going to be applicable, and we need to move on to these new models as soon as possible. The third point which I want to make is with respect to, then if data is so huge, how are we faring in it? And the fact of the matter is that we are not doing exceedingly well. In fact, the World Bank Development Report 2021 said that less than 20% of the low and medium income group countries have modern data infrastructure, such as co-location data centers or direct access to cloud services. In other words, that most countries, including India, we do not have adequate infrastructure to be able to handle the data which is of such immense value as we spoke about. In fact, the fact is that US and China control most of the data. While it is very difficult to say how much who owns, but we have statistics with respect to cloud, public cloud infrastructure, which is a good proxy for how much data who is controlling. And according to one estimate, the US-based companies Amazon Web Services, Microsoft Azure, and Google Cloud command over 70% of the global public cloud market. 70% of the global public cloud market. And guess what? The remaining 30% is with Chinese companies, Alibaba, Huawei, and Tencent. That is where most of the data resides. In fact, there is a tussle going on for capturing this data, because this data is so important. And while we may have several interpretations in this regard, the fact that there is a clean network initiative which has been launched to protect the privacy and security of data, which is largely targeted at one nation, is also in some way a geopolitical tussle to get the data under their control. But coming back to where we stand, again, there are no good estimates, but anecdotally it is said and believed that we are the world's largest data producer in the world. 20% of world's data is being generated by India. And however, we have only 2% of the world's data center capacity, which means most of the data that we produce actually is going elsewhere. In fact, multiple copies of the same is going elsewhere, and people elsewhere are generating value out of it. And that is something we need to think about. It is not only that we are producing large quantity of data. See, one of the ways today where data is being spoken has created new set of value, and we spoke about now data in itself creates value, is artificial intelligence. We all know that it is being used to train models which enable us to create tremendous value on different business processes. And it is important in any training of any AI model that the data should be diverse, vibrant, and should represent a segment of all age population. And it is in this context that India is not only the largest producer of data, but also the most vibrant and diverse data, making it really a treasure chest of diverse data at scale, which is so vital for the AI models. I think the importance of data has not lost, and significant efforts have been made by the government and by the industry to see how we can manage greater control of this data. We have seen the expansion of submarine cable capacity, which has grown from 930 9,300 gigabits per second to nearly 10 times at 83,000 gigabits per second. In last 6 years, we have today 17 international submarine cables landing in India and 14 international cable landing stations. There are incentives for setting up data centers, tax incentives, data centers get infrastructure status, and as well as the states provide their state subsidies and tax exemptions as well. And we hope that going forward, we will see increased ability to have our data in India. It is in this context, a very important question which keeps coming up again and again is the question of data localization. Should you localize data or should you and of course, India as a big IT outsourcing hub has a more difficult question to answer. But if we look around the world, there is several nations and regions where we see increasing tendency to create laws regarding data localization for exactly the reasons that we spoke about. In Europe, we saw the General Data Protection Regulation, which covers most of the EU, in fact, the whole of EU. In Russia, we have the federal law number 242 FZ, which requires all personal data of Russian citizens to be stored and processed within Russia. In China, we have the cybersecurity law, which was implemented in 2017, and this mandates that personal information and important data collected or generated by critical information infrastructure operators within China must be stored domestically. In India, we do not have any major requirement of localization yet. However, in 2018, the Reserve Bank of India directed that payment firms in India should ensure that their data is stored on local servers. Moreover, in the Digital Protection of Data, Digital Personal Data Protection Act of 2023, under Section 16(1), the government is authorized to restrict the transfer of personal data by a data fiduciary for processing. However, this provision has so far not been invoked, but we have created an enabling provision which can, depending on the requirement, allow data to be stored. Since several of you are dealing with data, it's also important to mention here that DPDP Act came in furtherance of the judgment of the Division Bench of the Supreme Court, which has recognized privacy in India as a fundamental right. In fact, the Supreme Court, and I read, Supreme Court has said that privacy is a concomitant of an individual's right to exercise control over his own personality and finds its origin in the notion that certain natural or inherent rights are inseparable from the human personality. And it is therefore fundamental right provisions of the Constitution are applicable, and all agencies who are processing data, personal data, are therefore required to fulfill the obligations under the Act. There are provisions under the DPDP Act under which the government can exempt government agencies in interest, public interest, from certain provisions of this Act, but I think it is important that we recognize the requirements of this Act, and while dealing with data, personal data, to the extent, make sure that we are in compliance with the provisions respecting the privacy as directed by the Honorable Supreme Court. Lastly, I just want to say that India has today created world standard in terms of managing data when it relates to people. And of course, I am talking of Aadhaar, of which current Secretary Statistics had the privilege to lead that organization. Today, data relating to people Aadhaar enables flow of information with respect to people, identity. We are also proud of having created a world standard in which information, data, statistics with respect to flow of money through the UPI. Both of these have not only become pervasive in India, but have gone global, and a dozen or more countries in each of these are today recognizing the merit of being able to use the value of data, have actually started implementing this or adopting these frameworks. It is in the same manner today, DEPA, the Digital Empowerment and Protection Architecture, approved by the Niti Aayog, has potential to reform and transform the value in which the theme of this seminar is on improve the value of decision making with respect to organizations. It can help, one, create inference flows, which is nothing but create decisions which were earlier not possible, and two, train AI models, which we talked about earlier. DEPA today actually creates a framework which will enable both of these in a manner which can benefit individuals who actually own the data. I began this talk by saying that the Googles and the Facebooks of the world have created multi-trillion-dollar organizations purely based on data. But it is also a fact that this data actually belongs to billions of users who are using their services. If we look at Google, it has 5 billion users, and which it means that $1.75 trillion of Google's worth is actually $350 per user is the value of his data which Google is today getting. If Meta is having $1.25 trillion cap today, market cap today, with its 3.98 billion users, it is about $250 per user that it is leveraging. And the model that the world has seen has been where big tech companies have actually leveraged the value of data for their own benefit, and the user has been left high and dry. DEPA actually creates an architecture where the user actually benefits with his own data. And this is one of the first manifestation of an architecture where the value of data can be directly derived by the user and not necessarily by the organization who processes it. And one instance of DEPA, the account aggregator system, which has already been implemented and has started creating impact on the ground, is worth mentioning. Today, account aggregator system allows small and medium enterprises to avail loans based on their cash flows, based on their actual functioning, rather than based purely on collaterals. It enables people to actually show your creditworthiness when you determine your rate of interest or your insurance rates. Today we have is still the account aggregator system is still nascent, but we already have more than 500 players in the ecosystem and more than 60 million accounts which have been linked to the account aggregator system. And increasingly, this movement is catching momentum. It is organizations and momentums like these, movements like these, which will enable taking the value of data into a decision making in such a manner that we can actually, when Professor Mahalanobis did his work, it was a different era. Now, time has come to leverage these new digital tools, these new opportunities of using data and statistics in a manner which was not possible during a different era. And I think this is a new opportunity, a new world of opportunity that opens before the Ministry of Statistics. with these words, once again, thank you very much for having me here. It's a great pleasure speaking to all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for a remarkable address. It stimulated our minds and emphasized the need of data in today's evidence-based decision-making. Moving ahead, to present the global scenario of using data in decision-making, we have amongst us a person with a very dynamic profile. He brings over 25 years of professional experience working with international institutions and advising national governments. Mr. Luis Felipe Lopez Calva is the Global Director for the World Bank's Poverty and Equity Global Practice in Equitable Growth, Finance and Institutions Vice Presidency. Sir joined the World Bank in 2022 from the United Nations Development Programme, where he served as UN Assistant Secretary General and Regional Director for Latin America and the Caribbean since 2018. In his previous tenure at the World Bank, he held various positions, including Practice Manager of the Poverty and Equity Global Practice for Europe and Central Asia, Co-Director of the World Development Report 2017 on Governance and Law, Lead Economist in Regional Poverty Advisor in the Poverty and Equity GP for Europe and Central Asia, and Lead Economist in Poverty, Equity and Gender Unit in the PREM Directorate for Latin America and the Caribbean. His research interests focus on labor markets, poverty and inequality, institutions, and the microeconomics of development. His work is published in several journals such as Journal of Development Economics, Journal of Economic Inequality, Oxford Economic Papers, World Development, the World Bank Economic Review, Oxford Development Studies, the Review of Income and Wealth, Economic Letters, among others. He was a visiting scholar and professor at Howard University, Stanford University, University of California, San Diego, and the World Institute for Development Economic Research. Sir holds a master's degree in economics from Boston University, as well as a master's and a PhD in economics from Cornell University. So please join me in welcoming Mr. Luis Felipe Lopez Calva to deliver his valuable insights on the theme of this Statistics Day. Please, sir.
Thank you very much. Particularly, I want to thank Honorable Secretary Saurabh Garg in MOSPI for this invitation, and it's an honor to also share this day with distinguished professors Karen Dicker and Pagnaria, and with my distinguished colleagues in the panel. But also I want to salute all the colleagues from these foreign delegations and from the Indian government, the students, and all the participants. I just want to start by saying that it's really a privilege for me, representing the World Bank, to be part of this important day honoring the memory and the legacy of Professor Mahalanobis, and I would also say the leadership of India in all the statistical work around the world. So what I will present today will start from a very specific perspective before the Sustainable Development Goals were mentioned. And I want to start by showing you the evidence on one of them, which is actually SDG number 1, in which, you know, as we know, 193 countries agreed in 2015 that the main, goal number 1 for the international community was the eradication of poverty. Also, the mission of the World Bank, as you know, has been always eradicating poverty globally, recently amended by a decision by the Executive Board. Now our mission is called, is summarized as eradicating poverty on a livable planet, which includes also issues related to climate action, but also to fragility and conflict, pandemics, and the provision of other public goods. So it is important to also acknowledge that there has been an important improvement in terms of our capacity to eradicate poverty, and during the last 30 years, more than 1 billion people were lifted out of poverty around the world. But it's also important to say that this slowed down and certainly turned around during the pandemic. During the pandemic, we saw the largest increase in poverty and inequality since World War II. So right now we are recovering from that shock, and the poverty is lower than it used to be, than it was before the pandemic, but still not completely recovered from that shock. Important to say in the next slide, please, that if we continue, as we call it, like the business as usual type of policy, the main goal, the SDG 1, is just out of reach for the international community. So we will not be able to meet that commitment, to honor that commitment by 2030 if we don't do something different, okay? So the projection is that even in the best case scenario, we would be around 7% of the global population in poverty by 2030 if we continue the current trend. Professor Pangarilla mentioned before that the best tool or the best policy to eradicate poverty is actually economic growth. So how can we develop policies that actually help us achieve that goal of economic growth, but in a way in which those at the bottom of the income distribution are the ones that participate more proactively in that process? So how we make growth more inclusive and more sustainable, that requires better policies. So if you see these other two poverty lines that we use in the World Bank, particularly the one, I would like to mention the one on $685 per person per day, which is for higher middle income countries. With that poverty line, almost half of the world population would be considered poor. So the challenge ahead is massive, and we need to improve policy. So let's go to the next one. So the only way in which we can do better policy is by looking at evidence and generating data. So let me show you this framework coming from World Development Report 2017. There is a space, let's call it the parliament, let's call it any political arena in which we make decisions, in which policies are agreed. That turns into specific development outcomes, certain patterns, levels and pattern of economic growth, for example, and that redistributes the capacity to influence in that policy arena. If we go to the next one, please. So that's what we call de facto power or de facto influence. So for example, if the income process is so that wealth is concentrated in a few hands, those people will have more influence in that policy arena. But also in that policy arena, we can change the rules of the game. So there is this rules game that redistributes what we call de jure power, right? So this constant process in which policies are designed that leads to development outcomes, that redistributes de facto power, that leads to new rules and a new de jure power, this is where the differential influence of actors is manifested. So we care about the rules of the game, policies. We care about actors. So the actors that agree on rules and agree on policies. Those actors require data to make good decisions. So this is why we see the centrality of data in that, what we call the infinite loop of governance. So data is the infrastructure of policy, okay? We have these three, or the value chain of how information leads to accountability. We need transparency, which means basically data is available. Second, we need publicity, which means data is not only available but is made public. And third, we need accountability, which means that data leads to consequences. So that makes data accountable. In the World Development Report 2021, that was also mentioned before, we argue that there is this role of data as a critical input to improve people's lives. And there are what we call the social contract for data that requires value, recognizing the value of data. Second, it builds trust in society. And finally, it provides also equitable access to that data. That should be what we call the social contract for data. However, you know, our potential to use this data is constrained. Currently, in one given year, not all countries have necessarily the capacity to generate the data, and on average, household surveys are 6 years out of date. So we're constantly trying to promote more timely data, and that requires resources. And I have to say that resources are far from enough. Only 0.3% of total development assistance is devoted to data. So we need a larger effort. In the World Bank, we have these indicators of what we call the Statistical Performance Index, in which we classify countries in terms of their capacity. And if we go to the next one, where the elements considered in that indicator are related to data use, to data services, data products, data sources, and data infrastructure. And you can see the classification of countries, and we continuously support countries in their capacity to improve that indicator. So we need to invest more in data-informed policy. This involves risks and also opportunities. The future is not what it used to be, in the sense we need a lot of technological change, and that creates also more expectations and more opportunities. So all the NSS, all the national statistics offices present have strengths and weaknesses, and we always try to assess and collaborate in improving the capacity of those national statistical offices. Currently, if we go to the next one, we have a new knowledge compact in the bank that includes as a central element the data bank as a key instrument to support countries. We have currently the largest portfolio. We support around 44 countries, mainly in IDA countries, more than $2 billion in support to statistical work, with a very specific framework to try to look at not only at data generation, but at modernization of statistical systems. Some examples. So look at, for example, we mentioned Australia here, investing in technology, data, and infrastructure. In 2015, Australia made a political decision to invest an important amount of resources to improve their capacity to interlinked data systems, and that led to what is called the business longitudinal analysis data environment. So the idea was basically the interconnectivity with a massive investment in infrastructure, and we can develop some of the details of that specific experience. In the UK, and this is very well known for many of you, there was this Bean report. There was a decision, again, political decision to assess and come up with new ideas on how to improve the system. And in 2017, for example, the Data Science Campus was launched to strengthen the expertise in data science across the government. So these are innovations that we want to highlight. And in the case of Mexico, in which the statistical agency also has integrated the geographical systems, so that idea of interlinking data with geography has been a very powerful tool to improve the system. Some examples of something we are doing recently, which has to do with improving the timely generation of data. We call it the real-time monitoring of welfare. So the idea is to take some technologies to improve the capacity for timely monitoring of impact, for example, of specific policies, so they can be fine-tuned along the way as they are implemented. And this leads, for example, to this tool that was used in the case of Bangladesh, in which there was a very a rapid response, not only rapid response to in this case to a natural hazard, but actually to preempt, and as long as certain indicators triggered a response, there was immediately a policy intervention to make people more able to cope with the shock, and that led to very positive results. The other one was this case here in India, in which after learning a very tragic experience in 1999, decisions were made, systems were put in place, and that led to a much better management of another shock in 2013. But this was basically through learning after that event in 1999. Finally, I want to spend some time saying that the bank is very much committed to working with others. One of the elements of the new vision implemented by President Ajay Banga at the bank is that the bank has to work through partnerships. So we're trying to work with national statistical offices. We have this very powerful tool called the Umbrella Facility for Poverty and Equity, in which many donor governments participate in a multi-donor trust fund to empower our practice within the bank. We have the Global Data Facility. We participate in the Power of Data initiative with the United Nations, and we try to work much more closely with the UN as well. Just to mention one example, I was recently in Central African Republic launching the first ever poverty assessment for Central African Republic, which was made possible by collaborating with UNHCR in the collection of data in a very complex context. So we want to express our commitment to work with all of you in trying to come with ideas and evidence. For us, data is an essential element of good policy making. Policy making is a sovereign process, it's a local conversation, but it can be enriched by all this international experience. And again, thank you for making the World Bank part of this conversation.
Thank you, sir, for that fascinating presentation. Your exploration of global experience of using data in decision making has been incredibly informative and has highlighted the critical role that statistics play in policy formulation, implementation, and evaluation. May I now invite Sri C. K. Jha, Deputy Director General, Coordination and International Cooperation Division, to propose a vote of thanks to the speakers of technical session. Sir is a 2000 batch officer of Indian Statistical Service. He has vast experience of working at Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade, Office of the Registrar General and Census Commissioner of India, Data Processing Center of NSS. Apart from his domain expertise in the field of official statistics and international cooperation, Sir is an avid reader and takes keen interest in Indian mythology and philosophy. So, sir, please.
Dr. Arvind Pangaria, Chairman 16th Finance Commission, Professor Rajiv Lakshman Karindikar, Chairman NSC, Dr. Binod Paul, Member Niti Aayog, Dr. Saurav Garg, Secretary MOSPI, Dr. Manoj Panda, Member 16th Finance Commission, and Sri A.K. Sadhu, Member NSC, Sri Kal Singh, DG Statistics, Srimati Geeta Singh Rathore, DG NSS, and Sri P.R. Meshram, DG CNA MOSPI, ADGs, AS, ASNFA, and other officers of MOSPI, officers of the central and UT governments, representatives of international organizations, namely UN and World Bank, winners of the essay competition and their family members, other dignitaries or distinguished speakers, friends from Press Information Bureau and media, ladies and gentlemen. On the occasion of this esteemed 18th Statistics Day, I am privileged to propose a vote of thanks for the participation in the event in many respects. On the behalf of the Ministry, I wish to express once again my sincere thanks to our Chief Guest, Dr. Arvind Pangaria, Chairman 16th Finance Commission, for accepting our invitation and for being with us today. Sir, your words have truly enlightened us, especially the contributions of Mahalanobis, which you described, and how he developed many things which contributed to the country, and how he contributed to the statistical legacy in the global statistical wisdom. And we are truly inspired by us. And we are very, very thankful to Professor Rajiv Lakshman Karindikar, Chairman NSC, for his talk about the transformation made in the Indian statistical system and the way we have to go for data integration, interoperability, and use of access by the users, so that data can be more friendly and it can be used in a proper way for better decision making. Let me also thank our Secretary, Dr. Saurav Garg, for his support and guidance towards the preparation of this event step by step and leading the ministry towards the reforms in statistical system and procedures. Such insights about various steps and innovations taken by various ministries about the role played by data and how we have to move forward to get it more integrated with the whole system of decision making. Sir, we are extremely thankful to you. I express my sense of gratitude to our speakers, Dr. Ajay Kumar, former Secretary, Ministry of Defense, Mr. Luis Felipe Lopez Calva, Global Director for the World Bank Group, for addressing the audience and sharing their views and experience regarding the use of data in decision making. There is special mention about the big role of data as infrastructure for policy making and the role of data in the transformative world in the digital era, which Dr. Ajay Kumar also explained very well, how we have to move forward and leverage our data ecosystem and how ministry has to play a significant role in the current era. I also express my thanks to all our DGs, ADGs, AS, ESNFA, GS, DDGs, and other colleagues from the ministry for supporting and advising us at each stage of preparation for this mega event. Let me also recongratulate all the winners of the essay competition and wish them all the best for their future endeavors. I would like to take this opportunity to express our gratitude to the officials of Manekshaw Center and the team looking after the event management, horticulture, and catering for the technical logistical support. I would also like to thank the Press Information Bureau and media representatives for covering the event. My sincere thanks to the officers and staff of all divisions of MOSPI for the immense contribution in the successful organization of the event. I thank all the members of coordination team of the ministry who worked tirelessly in connecting the dots, which is usually considered very difficult but very much essential for the success of any organization. I once again thank all the speakers, eminent dignitaries, and the participants who have spared their valuable time and joined us in the celebration and made the event a memorable one. I would like to conclude with a few lines from a poem on data that I had composed a few years back. Material to see the present and past, one of the important bases to forecast, a catalyst to make the development fast. Life is all about inference and preference during the process data is essence. Devoid of quality makes us lie, misrepresented creates a hue and cry, one must know how and why. Thank you, Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
Thank you, sir, for your kind words of appreciation. Without the persevering efforts of the team MOSPI, this Statistics Day would not have been a success. We have now reached the concluding session of today's program. On behalf of the entire statistical fraternity, wishing all of you a very happy Statistics Day. We are really thankful to our friends, colleagues, national and international guests, press and media personnel who have taken out their valuable time and joined us in the celebrations. Your participation had made this event a grand success. Now, may I please request all of you to join us for lunch that has been arranged outside the hall. Thank you so much. Jai Hind.